Good morning, friends. How are you? How's your life going on? Today, we are going to talk about cloud computing, cloud infrastructure as a service, IaaS. Okay, infrastructure as a service, IaaS is one of the services that can be provided with the cloud computing, where computer hardware capability is provided remotely on demand. Infrastructure as a service is also commonly known by its abbreviation IaaS. It is one of the three main forms of service that can be provided with cloud computing. As the name indicates, IaaS infrastructure as a service is the provision of infrastructure to the user over a network like the internet. So, being remote from the user, the cloud infrastructure can be located within a large computer center where the provider can locate, run, manage the required resources. So, infrastructure as a service architecture basics. As the name indicates, when using an IaaS model, the cloud resources provider provides access to computing infrastructure components that the user can access. The advantage of this is that the user does not have to provide them, and they can easily be scaled according to the needs. The cloud infrastructure as a service resources may include servers, storage, and networking hardware, as well as the virtualization or hypervisor layer. This will be located in a remote cloud computing or data center. In addition to the basic hardware resources, the cloud provider will also provide a dashboard and management area where the user can access information about uses. Typically, this might include billing, monitoring, log access, security, as well as more advanced processes including load balancing, clustering, backups, and data recovery. Okay, so it provides uh, it provides advanced processes such as load balancing, clustering, backups, and data recovery, etc. The user will access all the services over a wide area network (WAN), typically the internet, and this means that the user and the cloud infrastructure can be located anywhere that is convenient. The user is able to access the cloud infrastructure API and undertake all the required tasks needed to run and maintain the service needed. Even though the user will normally have a considerable degree of control over their account, the service provider will also need to manage the overall system and also provide support if needed for the individual user or account holder. Next, let's talk to sorry let's start advantages and disadvantages. Okay, the use of cloud infrastructure as a service provides many advantages for many different users. However, before embarking upon the use of this approach, it is wise to consider both the advantages and disadvantages of using it. So, first of all, advantages: cost efficiencies. It can sometimes be more cost effective to rent infrastructure, especially if the needs is not for the long term or the requirement is not constant. Okay, so it is cost effective. So it is cost efficiencies. Next, highly scalable. If a shift increase in capability is required, this may not allow us be easy to manage if hardware needs to be bought. By using cloud computing, IaaS, almost instantaneous increases can be implemented by stepping up a level with the service provider. Typically, this can be managed purely through the API. Next, cost management. The use of cloud infrastructure as a service often helps with cost management. If a large increase in infrastructure is needed, the use of infrastructure as a service shifts the cost from capital expenditure, okay, to operational expenditure, okay, capex to operational expenditure, opex, which is paid out over a term. Reduced need for highly skilled staff. If If infrastructure is effectively hired from a cloud infrastructure as a service provider, it can reduce the need to employing a large number of highly skilled IT staff. It should be remembered that IT staff will be required to manage infrastructure as a service API and the internal equipment and network, but there will be less infrastructure and therefore fewer staff should be needed. Next, demerits or disadvantages. Some of the main advantages of cloud infrastructure as a service are below. Security. Some businesses may be concerned about the security of the cloud service and the internet link between. For businesses where security is an issue, having the infrastructure under control of another company and shared with others along with an internet link, this may be an issue. Next, adjacent user may degrade performance. As cloud infrastructure is a shared resource, sometimes if another user has a very high load, it can impact the performance experienced by other users. Next, system transparency. Normally, cloud infrastructure as a service providers offer a service, but the user normally has little understanding of exactly how this operates and is managed. This can be fine for the majority of users, but in some time instances, this lack of transparency can be an issue, especially if non-standard configuration are needed. Next, service reliability. The user is totally dependent upon the service provider to ensure that the infrastructure operates reliably. Where reliability is a key issue, this should be defined in the service agreement, as it may be difficult to change providers once a system is established, especially in the middle of a project. So the various advantages and disadvantages of using cloud infrastructure as a service should all be considered along with many others that may become visible. This will enable a balanced and informed decision to be made about the use of cloud infrastructure. Next, cloud platform as a service, okay, PaaS. It's a form of cloud computing service where hardware as well as the tools and software are provided to build applications, etc. Platform as a service is one of the forms of cloud service that is offered by cloud computing providers. On the form of cloud service, the provider delivers hardware capability and software tools over WAN. WAN stands for Wide Area Network, which is most commonly the internet. For this cloud service, the provider hosts the software on its hardware and gives access to the users. The advantage of this is that the platform as a service users do not need to install and maintain the software on their own hardware, which they may need to upgrade to run the software, especially if it is advanced software for a specific task. One of the issues with running software on your own computer is that it can sometimes be inconvenient or difficult to upgrade the software. It may not install properly, or there may be other issues, especially if the hardware is a little older. These issues can be overcome by using cloud platform as a service, as the hardware and software will be maintained to the required standard, with the provider resolving the upgrade issues. Next, using cloud platform as a service. Okay, platform as a service does not replace the infrastructure of a business, but instead the business will use the platform as a service for some key services or applications. There are many examples of how platform as a service has been used for a variety of applications. There are software accounting packages that use platform as a service. Data is entered onto the system from a computer, smartphone, or whatever is convenient. The software uses a web browser environment for the user, but the main software is run on the provider's hardware platform. It is here that the calculations are undertaken. The data for the individual users is stored, okay, etc. Tax returns, etc. can be made for whichever the user may be situated, provided that a browser is available, preferably a secure browser, and the work is done on the provider's platform. Next, the cloud platform as a service provides a resilient and optimistic environment which users can access rather than running the software on a variety of platforms with different operating systems. It The platform as a service provider can optimize the system on which the software itself runs. The user then needs to have a much simpler interface, which is typically a web browser. So now let's go to advantages and disadvantages. Okay, first we will talk about advantages. Some of the main advantages of cloud platforms as a service are below: convenience, reliability, accessibility. Okay, first, it can be far more convenient to use a platform as a service application than one for which the software has to be downloaded. The hardware maintained to a specific level and the operating system on it maintained to a given level as well. By using platform as a service, the hardware of the provider is used to run the application. Data is stored on the storage and the software will be the most up to date. It makes using advanced forms of software that might need updating regularly very convenient to use. Next, reliability. As the software runs on the provider's hardware, the system should be available virtually all the time. Next, accessibility. Often, when using platform as a service, it is possible to access the application in any location. The level of hardware needed to run the software is also not an issue, so it can make mobility for easier. Next, disadvantages of Next, disadvantages: security. As the application requires an internet connection to connect the user to the platform as a service provider, this can present a security issue. Secure connections must be used as well as adequate login credentials. In addition to this, users must be trained not to adopt and practices that could allow unwanted or malicious users into the system. Next, requires an internet connection. By the very definition of a platform as a service application, it needs to be accessed remotely. This requires the use of an internet connection. Although connectivity is available in most places, this may not always be the case. Additionally, internet connections can fail, and therefore this needs to be accommodated in any planning. Next, platform as a service reliability. Normally, the platform as a service provider will provide a reliable service. The reliability of the platform as a service platform could be specified in any service agreement to ensure that all issues have been covered. Okay, so friends, we have talked today infrastructure as a service and a platform as a service, right? First, we discussed about the IAAS infrastructure as a service. Okay. Next, we discussed about the platform as a service. Okay. Along with it, we discussed the merits and demerits. Okay, of infrastructure as a service and platform as a service. I hope you must have got knowledge. Thank you very much.